How have business drivers impacted your organizational risk? Simulate Extended Security Posture Management enables CISOs to know what parts of your cybersecurity portfolio to keep, what to get rid of, and what to buy. Know that your cybersecurity investments are optimized and can reduce cybersecurity risk. With Simulate, you don't assume you are secure, you know. Visit securityweekly.com/simulate to learn more.
Cyber risk and compliance automation is finally here. Legacy GRC systems cannot support the powerful, real-time automation and oversight that organizations require to take risks that matter to succeed. CyberSync continuous control automation ingests data from the IT GRC stack to update controls against regulatory requirements and risks in real time, delivering insights and visibility. See how members of the Fortune 500 are saving millions annually by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersync. Endpoint security is designed to protect every device in your fleet, wherever it may be. These days, that can be a lot of different places. Find out how HP Wolf Security uses emerging strategies like application isolation, along with a zero-trust approach and framework to give you a powerful, manageable, usable solution to your growing and increasingly spread-out security challenges. Learn how HP Wolf Security can make a difference across your endpoints at securityweekly.com/HP Wolf.
Back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque and Ben Carr. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. Join Paul Asadorian and Rich Mogul on May 4th to learn how to choose the right architecture for your application. Live attendees at this webcast will have the chance to win a $100 Hacker Warehouse gift card. Register at securityweekly.com/webcast. And don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcasts by visiting securityweekly.com/on-demand. All right, gentlemen, time for articles and leadership communication of the week. So I started with an SC Media article. Occasionally I pull stuff from our own site. We write about a bunch of stuff. But the reason I like this one is we actually went out to our CISO community and asked them what the most important topics were and aligned them to our taxonomy. And this article kind of summarizes some of those. I don't see any surprises here, but I like it because I know that it came from our CISO membership, so I know that they're pretty valid instead of from a vendor.
Yeah, a little bit more quality assurance around that, right? Yeah, I mean, no surprise, right? Threat landscape. I mean, obviously with Russia-Ukraine issues going on, nation-state attacks are going to be heightened. But I mean, really, the only net new, I guess, conversation is the whole zero trust side of the aisle, right? They're actually having that as part of their their hot topics. So yeah, nothing surprising.
Yeah. I didn't see anything.
I was going to say the only thing I would add on to this list is don't have 20 critical priorities. I get it. It's surveying a bunch of people, and these are the top 20 that came out of that list. But I see a lot of people making this mistake where they go into a budget cycle or a year for planning and say, I'm going to get this laundry list of things done, and then they fail miserably because they just had too many priorities on a prioritized list. Like it's got to be your top things that you're really trying to hit and make sure you're hitting them, and set yourself up for success. So that would be
dead on. That's one of the things we're going to be talking about later, right? Complexity is a way to disaster. I mean,
exactly.
Don't overcomplicate, because if you're focused on too many things, you have too many balls in the air, you're never going to do any of them well. You're going to be spread too thin.
Exactly. Yeah, look, and that's a difference you'll see with somebody who's had butts in seat for a while and somebody who's new, right? Is they'll try to go out and accomplish a ton of stuff to make it look really impressive, when reality success is really impressive. So make sure you've got the right things on the list.
That's it. Yeah, it's all about the quality, right? And so many times I say I don't want to be a manufacturing firm making widgets. I want to be giving quality out there to the organization and customers.
Yeah.
Yep. So this next article talks about 6 lessons from the lawsuits, the civil lawsuits from the SolarWinds breach. And I bring this article in because this attack like started naming CISOs. They like started coming after CISOs. Like CISOs are named in these lawsuits. And we talked a little bit about this, I think, last week with some of the changes in the legal and litigation side of the house. And it'll be interesting to see the rest of this case continue to, give us information as it continues to go through the courts. But they pulled out 6 lessons that they think are important for CISOs to think about so that they're not, pulled into some of these lawsuits in the future. They probably will anyways, but as a CISO, how do you protect yourself? Yeah. And the first one, talks about personnel need to follow policies and procedures. That's assuming the organization has policies and procedures in place.
Yeah, right. I mean, it just shows, number one, the necessity to have these policies, procedures, standards, and guidelines in play, but also strengthens the argument of, are you testing them? Are you making sure they're effective? Are you doing the diligence around them? Are you making sure that those policies, procedures, standards, and guidelines aren't a book on a shelf collecting dust, and that you're actually executing against them?
Yeah, this is a train that's been in motion for a little while, right? I mean, we saw this. I think the first one I would call out would be maybe Uber, right? I think that there was some motion around that, and then SolarWinds with this lawsuit certainly enhanced that, made it clear that this is the new wave of the future. And then I think the SEC guidance on getting cyber expertise at the board, you're going to see a new raft of lawsuits if people don't have that expertise, whether it's the CISO or a board member. And number one takeaway for me is make sure you're on the D&O insurance. Make sure that you're covered, right? I mean, everybody should be talking about that. And if you didn't talk about it when you came in, this is an opportunity for you to have this discussion, with counsel, and at least getting it in writing if they're saying you're covered, even if it's not an official something, articulating you're a part of D&O. I think people have to be prepped for this, because I think this is going to be more momentum moving forward. Again, these 6 takeaways, there's not anything surprising out of this. This is pretty much table stakes, but you got to be doing the basics to be able to focus on some of the more advanced stuff that we all like to play with. I mean, I call that, chasing the shiny ball syndrome, where we, something new comes along. It's really sexy and interesting. All the security guys move in that direction, and we forget that we just need to patch vulnerabilities, make sure we have a good policy, make sure that we're doing documentation. I mean, all those things are just the table stakes that we need to be doing. Yeah,
I think too, that called out to me that I think we need to focus on and not just hit easy buttons on. They kind of go together, right? One was maintain a register to track and manage risk, and the other one's align mission critical task according to risk, right? What's the mantra? If you're not managing the business to risk, you're going to end up reporting to someone who manages the business to risk. So they're going to be looking for artifacts around that, right? Where are your risk registers? How are you prioritizing them? And hey, by the way, how are you making sure the most critical risks are being taken care of first, and doing it in the order of priority?
If you think back, like it goes back to, security is not about saying no. I think it is a business decision at the end of the day. Having something on the risk register and having the appropriate amount of insight to it, that kind of protects the CISO, right? I mean, you don't have to agree with everything the business makes as a choice, but somebody with the right authority has to sign off on it. They're going to accept that risk, and having that risk register, having the facilitated discussion, keeping all the notes about the discussions that happened and the advice that went into it. I mean, I think that's really foundational to making sure that if something does happen, you've got that evidence.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it allows you to articulate, why that risk may have been transferred or accepted, right? Or not, not resolved in that fashion. I mean, in a risk register, I used to have the team put roadmap out there, right? We can accomplish XYZ by Q1 with the ultimate goal of being complete by Q4. And if you can actually show you're on a roadmap to remediation, that's some documentation and artifacts you need.
Yeah, and why you made that informed decision to push that out further than maybe was initially thought it should be fixed. So I mean, all those things are good evidentiary items.
So you guys hit on the point, but I'm going to re-emphasize it. 3 of the 6 on the list are all about risk management. Yes. And I think, to me, that's the biggest takeaway. This has become a risk management discussion, not just a security discussion anymore. Right. And we've said it on this show. If you're not managing risk, then you're going to report to the risk manager, the CRO, or whatever, right? This is about risk management now, because I think the biggest takeaway for me was the highlight of the risk management issues that are really plaguing security. It's not security for the sake of security, it's security for the sake of risk. And we got to start thinking about the risk management side of this more. And that was kind of my takeaway from this one.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Next article talks about CTO and CIO interaction, but I brought this article in because we have the exact same discussions when it comes to the CISO, the CTO, and the CIO. And I thought, well, why not? If the CTO and the CIO need to collaborate more, doesn't that mean that the CISO, the CTO, and the CIO also need to collaborate more? Why was the CISO excluded from this article?
That's the first thing I picked out of this, and why is there not a CISO in this collaborative approach? But at the end of the day, this is a scenario that I lived for pretty close to a decade, right? Being in IT services and IT managed services. We had, a CTO who ultimately brings on new partners, brings on new offers, helps develop intellectual property that we're going to sell as an organization, is really doing a lot of that customer-facing offer focus. And then as the CIO and the CISO, having a lot of that internal focus with collaboration to be able to influence some of that external focus. I'll tell you, it works out extremely well when you have great relationships between all three of those executives. It really, really does. Because now you're actually straddling both sides, internal, external, building internal centers of excellence that will be models for the customer. Having those different levels of influence and goals that you're trying to achieve, and everybody working toward those same goals together, provides a really, really good teamwork exercise to be able to get your inside shored up, as well as your customer-facing, products, services, whatever the case may be, solid for your customers, because you have the visibility across all of those executive branches.
I find it interesting that when you think about a lot of these articles, it's the context of where the article was written from, right? This one comes from CIO Dive, and so for me, when I look at it, it's a blind spot for CIOs, right? They don't see this as, they need to involve the CISO. They look at it a lot of times very traditionally. I think if you looked at an article that was written from a security bent, you would certainly see a different perspective from the CISO, and seeing that, they're talking about the inclusion and the need to be able to have that conversation across the entire C-suite. And I think certainly the CTO makes a ton of sense. It just really does speak to the fact that we continue to see this mindset leaving security out of discussion from CIOs. And I think they have to be really careful from that perspective, that they're not missing the fact that the relevance is changing.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I mean, it's just that traditional silo that's become habit, right? They're not breaking the habit.
Yep. Talking about habits, I brought this American Banker article in about some of the challenges on the banking side. The last one actually talks about the cybersecurity role not reporting into the CEO. Now, we know that the larger banks have been a little more mature about this, but when you get into some of the smaller banks and other ones, this is still a big gap in the discussion, right? Is where the security people report in these banking organizations.
I'll tell you,
with some saying it creates a major governance issue, like it creates a major governance issue not to have them report to the CEO. Like I don't understand that at all. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the power of the CISO is going to come with that position, because here's the thing: you're going to have CIOs, CFOs, CTOs who report up to the top levels of leadership, the CEO, or in our case, the CTO reported over to the CRO, right? But and then the CIO reported into the CEO. But at that top tier of executive leadership, if the CISO doesn't have a seat at the table, the CIO and the CTO aren't going to see them as a peer.
That's right.
That's troubling right there, because they 100% are a peer, and I would argue in some instances are positioned to take over some of those roles of CIO and CTO.
Yeah, agreed. The other one that was on here was around tech partners having run third-party vendor management programs for some of the large banks, this is still a big challenge. I wasn't surprised to see this one on here because, I remember the day at National City Bank trying to manage 70,000 vendors. Like it's overwhelming. You cannot do the due diligence on 70,000 vendors to figure out, where the next domino is going to fall in that set. And we've seen this with the Target attack and other breaches where it's the third-party relationship. So, this is still big. I thought the one around cryptocurrency was interesting because, I get it. The banks are getting into crypto, but I'm like, it's just one area I personally would avoid right now, just because again, I'm not sure how secure some of these exchanges and environments are, but the banks looks like they're leaping in with 2 feet to get into the money side.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're taking that risk approach as well. They know that they have to invest in some, let's call it R&D type scenario, right? Where they know there's going to be some risk around it. I don't think they're going to be, investing unintelligently. I'll put it that way.
Absolutely. This next article is for you, Mr. Albuquerque. The Navy SEALs, 5 leadership
why
principles.
Why are you leaving me out? I love this article.
I know you both do, but I bring these in primarily because Jason, in his military background, he just loves articles like this.
Here's the thing. Matt realizes at this point, because what am I going on year 3 or more on the show? I've read every single one of Jocko's books, right? So I've read The Dichotomy of Leadership. I've read Extreme Ownership. I've read Leadership Strategy and Tactics. I have them right behind me. They're sitting in this bookshelf right behind me here. And, I thrive off of some of these articles because, at the end of the day, there's a quote in here, right? That, you can build good leadership. You can build strong leadership. You're not born with it, right? It's something that, and the military does an incredible job of building a lot of these pillars that they talk through, right? Making sure your mission comes first. Making sure you take accountability for every decision. If you're a leader, you own every decision that's making in your department. Like it or not, that's the reality of it. You can't lead every single person across the entirety of an organization. You have to build the ranks. You have to build the succession plan. You have to build future leaders, right? And then discipline. Discipline is huge. Being a disciplined leader sets you up for success, and it's something that I call bringing your A game to the table every single day. If you're not bringing your A game to the table every single day, you're not going to have that confidence to be a strong leader. So these are just innately instilled in folks who are in the military that I think add value to every single leader out there. It's something that's lacking in some leadership courses that you take, and I think if we could get that instilled in some of our leadership courses, we'll be that much better, that much stronger.
Yeah, completely agree. I liked everything about this article, and I think he brings up a lot of points that, while some may say, are relevant to the military, I'd say they're relevant no matter what you're doing from a leadership
100%.
perspective. I mean, this is just everything resonated well with me, right? Complexity, taking responsibility, not blaming it on somebody else. I mean, it's really, really important to focus on these items.
Yeah, I
was going to say the quote you were probably looking for was, the leader must acknowledge mistakes and admit failures, take ownership of them, and develop a plan to win. Yeah. Like, that's what leaders are supposed to do, right? And if you do that effectively as a leader, you're going to win more than you're going to lose, right? And I think, that, along with some of these other points around discipline and complexity, are things that leaders have to understand and manage against, right? We were talking earlier, like 20 priorities is too much, right? It's too complex. Like, narrow it down. Like, pick your top 3 to 5, right, Ben? Or, and execute against those for the year. You can't solve 20 things at the same time. It's just not possible.
No. The military sometimes.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say the military sometimes gets flack from the businesses and it's government, it's bloated. But here's the thing: take a step back and think about what the mission of the military is. Right? The mission of the military is to bring people together who ultimately are ready to sacrifice their lives for this country, to go off and fight wars, And the mission is to be effective. The mission is for us to be able to react to these situations efficiently. Leadership is a core component to be able to take, kids, right? 18-year-old kids, and get them prepared to go to war effectively and efficiently. If leadership isn't a core component of that, I don't know what else is. That's probably one of the best things the military brings to the table, is their ability to grow leaders and create effective leaders who can take thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to get them around one mission.
And I think, Jason, like when you think about it, like I'm a huge supporter and align with everything you said, right? But if you think about leaders and you think about opportunities and issues where you've seen things go awry, or you're like, yeah, this guy does not know what he's doing, right? Whether it's military or it's in civilian life, you can attribute it back to many of these things, right? Like not having concreteness of mission, not knowing what you're actual aiming at. But yeah, whether it's military or commercial, you're going to recognize the failures in that, right? I think the complexity issue was just huge for me. And then there was a quote in here about human beings can only manage up to 10 people. Like I know that there are instances in my past lives where I've seen a leader who's got like 35 people who are direct reports, not functionally working. Like there's just no way you can manage that many people, right? And you have to let go. You have to let people run those areas of responsibility that they have. You have to trust them, and you have to let them fail once in a while, because that's the way people learn. I mean, I don't know why it's so hard to focus on these items, but it just really, we need to think about these things when we're trying to put together high performing teams and make sure we're aligning to, things that will get us success, not things that are, just building up our own, resumes or egos.
Yeah, and that's, I think you just hit on it, because that's where I was about to go, Ben, is I think lesson number one puts it into perspective, right? Ego is not where you want to be. You cannot put your ego above the mission. And I think so many people let their ego take control, where they sit back and they say, I can manage 30 people easily. I know I can. Well, you can't. You can't. You're human. You're not some Marvel character. You're not a superhero. Ultimately, you can't. So take the ego aside and do the right thing. Make the mission come first.
Yeah. And I paired this article with the last article because you just hit on a part of it, Jason, around ego. More powerful people express less gratitude. Think about that for a second in the conversation we just had. The higher up in the leadership chain you get, you express less gratitude, which creates more angst with your employees under you. And now in the military, I don't see that as a challenge, but in the corporate world, holy cow, right? We're living through this difficult time of remote work, not getting the face time with our employees like we used to. And when you couple that with the more powerful people are, the less gratitude they share, no wonder we have so much a kind of turnover and dissatisfaction in the workforce. And we can't afford to lose our good people. We can't afford to lose our good teams because we as leaders don't feel that we can thank them enough for the work that they do.
Yeah, I think this article is a combination of a couple of things, right? I mean, yes, it's quote unquote power or position. I think the other side is coupled with ego. And then the other part is experience, because here's the thing, as a young kid, my family always taught me to appreciate anyone and everyone around, from, making sure you thank the folks who are taking the trash out for you, the cleaners who are coming in. I mean, my grandparents and father owned a business, and, it's one of those scenarios where you'd have the cleaning crew come in and you'd thank them, right? You show appreciation. And my grandfather told me at one point in time, those are the people you want to make sure you're thanking, because when you need them, they're going to be here for us. They're going to be here to help us and serve us. We need to be serving back, right? And putting that back. So I think a level of humility and respect based on experience is an important combination there, because you may have leaders who weren't taught those lessons. I was taught that lesson, right? If thank the facilities person who comes in and fixes your light because your light is broken. You got to have that level of humility. You got to have that level of pushing the ego aside. We're all humans. We're all here to help each other. And, you know, that person that you thank today, they, you know, you could need them and they'll be helping you in the future. So why not?
Yeah, this pays so many dividends, especially when you think about retention for people. I mean, just really expressing your gratitude and making sure that you're, you know, letting people know when they're doing a good job and you're building them up, not breaking them down. You know, that truism about, you know, people don't leave jobs, they leave, you know, leaders, right? If you're a poor leader, you're not going to be able to keep staff and the retention is going to be bad. So I think that's something we really need to focus on, is how we treat everybody and make them feel part of the team and as well valued and wanted employees.
You know what? Try to embed it in your everyday life. You know, it's kind of funny. Over the weekend, I'm going through the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru with my son. And, you know, he orders his frozen hot chocolate. I order my iced coffee. Big, long line. Things are getting backed up. And, you know, the person at the window forgot to give me one of my items. And at the end of the day, I didn't get upset. I actually thanked them for working so hard. And you could see the look on that person's face of surprise. And then the return was, wow, no, thank you, right? And just that thank you for working hard and thank you for giving me what I ordered. I mean, just embed it in your everyday life. Why not? Why not just be that person who can thank people for their service?
Yeah. Yeah. In coming to Texas, I don't know how much you experience this down in Austin, but up here, I'll tell you, the nicest people, like they're constantly just thanking you. They show gratitude. Like being in a culture like that is like kind of exhilarating because you don't always get that, Jason, right? Where people are just like, hey, thank you for your service. Hey, thank you for this. Like it goes a long way to create a nice culture. And if you're trying to think about creating a positive culture in your organization, simple thank yous and showing these gratitudes will go a long way. Yes, and building that culture.
Start there. You know, and if you live in the crazy Northeast like I live, and people are running 1,000 miles an hour and not thanking anybody, be the opposite of that. Try to influence the culture, because that's what I do on the day-to-day. I try my best.
The great thing about it is when you're thinking about your budget, that's free. Right? It doesn't cost you anything.
Zero.
Right? That's a $0 line item. That's a great one. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.